Hey, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am Joel here, and I'm Blue here. We are from the likes of the Muxy Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more of Let's Play of Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games for the Nintendo Wii U. So, last time we have managed to conclude Area 4, and once again we are basically dominated throughout the majority of Legend Showdown mode. And today for this episode is the fact that we're about to be moving on to Area 5, which in here, we actually go into ourselves into the first event straight off the bat by the forms of Freestyle Ski Cross. And this obviously takes place in a somewhat of a similar location as you normally do from Skateboard Cross, except rather than just using snowboard, instead we can able to utilize the skis themselves. So even then, and also if you couldn't tell already, is the fact that unlike in Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, they you know, with the actual special weather conditions they are able to utilize with, thanks to the forms of the forecast channel or something like that. Unfortunately though, for Sochi 2014, it doesn't seem to able to have different weather conditions this time around, because instead, depends on what events you're going to be replaying through, it's always going to be the same thing. So even then though, I kind of wish there was actually more variety when it comes to some of these weather conditions like this, but unfortunately seemingly to say that we can't able to do Snowboard Cross in daytime, because instead it's going to be more accurately, you know, snowstorm for this whole time. But oh well, it's not the end of the world or anything like that, to be honest with you, because even then though, I simply can't stress enough about the fact that some of these comparisons to the previous installments of the Olympic Winter Games, because as far as I'm aware, as far as we already know about this already, is the fact that for whatever reason, they just skipped over the 2018 installment of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games installment, probably because of Ubisoft has managed to able to own the actual, the 2018 Winter Olympics video game, and then decided to put that in the forms of Step. So, I've heard of that game before, but I've never actually gone to own it, most notably because, well, I just don't know what do I feel about it. So, because yeah, basically in the forms of this particular event, you know, it plays out exactly like how it did in Snowboard Cross, except, you know, you're going to be using skiing for most of the time. And also, the amount of players we're going to be using this time around is actually the final 4 players, which there are specifically the villains, which there are Bowser, Bowser Jr., Dr. Eggman, Metal Sonic. So even then, that's to be expected with the actual last 4 characters that we actually going to be seeing in action. So, as far as the final portion of the game though, well, we'll point that out whenever we get to it until tomorrow, which, speaking of which actually, is the fact that according to this uploading schedule, although I'll talk more on that later, here we have another new event right here introduced in this game, and that appears to be the Snowboard Slopestyle, which is basically we have to go through a serious amount of obstacles, depends on what routes you're going to be taking through, and then also, as a matter of fact though, is the fact that once again it's just the actual snowboard event, even though it's kind of like the same thing for Half Pipe from the original Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, except you don't do half pipes anymore, because instead, we're actually going to be going through a serious amount of challenges during the forms of some segments throughout, such as, well, we'll point that out whenever we jump right in. So even then though, here's Metal Sonic right here during the actual main event itself. So even then, yeah, we're about to jump straight into this. Even though we're still about to be doing some trick ups and ramps or what have you. But the only thing is, Blue, is the fact that we might actually come across into ourselves some rail grindings once in a while, and especially noticeable with these little some flat little stumps as far as I'm aware. So even then though, and basically if you try to able to perform tricks and stuff, well, basically you're gonna have to utilize the Wii U gamepad until you're able to slide the actual tricks, depends on what directions you're gonna be able to swiping in. So it can be pretty cool though, but what I found is a little bit iffy about this is that every time, whenever we pretty much done with the actual tricks themselves, for whatever reason, we just had a hard time trying to deal with the actual landing position, because every time whenever we do this, and then stop for a little bit, and then as a result of the specific stuff, it keeps on telling us landing failed. But I'm guessing it's probably because that you're probably not going to do it too much though, but either way though, it's just a little bit of a convenience that is. So yeah, from here, if you go onto the rail grinding right there, then you have to simply balance it out. But if you come towards these little sequence right there, and it's important to know, drift along, and then you have to flick up the Wii U gamepad at all times, so that way you can able to count up the actual emphasis on the forms of performing tricks for that specific segment. So, and as far as memories goes for this event, it's actually pretty cool as an event, but the only major downside is, of course, you keep on getting the forms of landing fails every time you do so. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to know, basically. So even then, we did pretty well in speed, and as far as tricks, as far as they're concerned, it might be somewhere in the middle. So yeah, it's not too bad for this run. So yeah, according to the forms of the actual uploading daily schedules, is that today's day is the forms of the 23rd of December today in 2019. So relatively speaking, for this point blue, we got about 2 more days to go until Christmas during that specific recording time. However, though, there's going to be a little bit of a major point about this, is that we won't be any, we're probably not going to upload anything on December 25th on Christmas Day, probably because, well, we'll point that out when the next Christmas video is going to be up. So the next event right here is Figure Skating Spectacular. So as you can see, you can actually choose between either Mario and Sonic versions. So, however though, we'll show off Sonic's Figure Skating Spectacular in just a second, because for the majority of this event right here, or in this case in Legend Showdown, we'll go ahead and play through Mario's Figure Skating Spectacular, because at the end though, I just think I kind of prefer Mario's Figure Skating Spectacular from the likes of Sochi 2014 over the likes of Sonic's version for some reason, although it's kind of a little bit more opposite from the likes of how it does in the original Olympic Winter Games for sure, because I remember back in, well, we won't exist during the forms of 2010 obviously until 2011, but as far as I remember correctly, it's the fact that I actually do enjoy the Sonic's figure skating, figure skating dream event, because even then though it does conclude with ourselves the epic encounter with perfect chaos and all that stuff, and also collecting the chaos symbols in the process. So anyways, let's get to it with the forms of Figure Skating Spectacular. Specifically the Mario's version right here, which obviously this inspires by Super Mario 3D Land, because you can definitely tell from the actual music, as well as the forms of the aesthetics and all that stuff. Especially noticeable whenever we get to the second segment of this specific, Mario's figure skating spectacular, that obviously it plays out exactly as it sounds from the likes of the regular figure skating, except, well, some fan service alike. So even then though, yeah, that's as far as memories goes for this Mario's Figure Skating Spectacular goes. That's pretty much all there is to know, apart from the fact that there's actually going to be pretty cool cinematics right there, such as like, well, of course, if you remember from the likes of Bullet Bill Sledge Race, that we've already beat the likes out of the forms of Kamek during the forms of Area 2. Well, he was showed up yet again, but except he was a part of the role during the forms of that specific performance. So yeah, seems very convenient enough as it goes by. So even then, we'll just keep on rank up some points and all that stuff. Keep that in mind though, is the fact that ever since we're going to be playing this on Legend Showdown, this is all team-based, because even then though, unlike the ones and how it does it in the if you play this on single match, it's all divided into individuals. So this means that, well, we need to compete against each other with the actual points amount. So of course the next segment right there is actually also based off from Super Mario 3D Land. In fact, the entirety of this entire Figure Skating Spectacular for Mario is actually heavily borrowed from the likes of Super Mario 3D Land for sure. Probably because of how the fact that with the actual aesthetics and all that stuff. Because with that game came out in 2011, whilst in this came out in 2013. So it's more accurately, it's like a 2-year years release between them. So, and after all, since we're going to be playing as Bowser on the specific events right there, alongside with Bowser Jr., and also the same applies for Dr. Eggman and Metal Sonic, which 3 of these players are controlled by computer players. And check this out, we got, well, another Bowser showing up. So this means if we go on to this next transmission, we got 2 Bowsers on screen, which is pretty crazy kind of thing about it, because that's the reason why we'll have to show this off. And then it's pretty weird though. And think about it for this moment, Joel, is the fact that as you can see on this back, obviously it's pretty much a fake Bowser on that specific stage performance, because well, he does manage to have himself the actual Tanuki tail, which that actually involves most of these Bowser's minions, mainly with the forms of the Goomba, most likely, that does manage to achieve the actual Super Leaf if you play through Super Mario 3D Land. So, and just like in Super Mario 3D Land, we can just simply press that button, and sure enough, there goes fake Bowser, or in this case, false Bowser, if you will. Even though it's kind of weird that the real Bowser did manage to see false Bowser dies in the end. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. So yeah, the ultimate goal for this is basically how to rank up some points, if you will, and the entire purpose of this is to save 5 identical Toads. So even then, there's not much else to say about this here, so, which I think is pretty obvious for this point, Joel, because even then though, well, usually this involves around, you know, Mario needs to save Princess Peach once again, but except the fact that, well, you know, it's just a standard Mario story as to be expected, so even then there's not much else to really talk about that for the specific time. So yeah, it's pretty cool though, because even then though, I actually really do enjoy this way more than the forms of how it does it on the Sonic's Figure Skating Spectacular in this installment, because I have no idea why. I think it's pretty obvious because of how the fact that, well, it's so weird how if you manage to play as, well, Bowser on a specific Mario's Figure Skating Spectacular, then obviously 2 Bowsers has been shown on screen, which that feels kind of reminds me like Super Smash Bros. For some reason, except, well, there's no color alteration, so even then though, the only differences between the two is, of course, their tails design. So even then though, we'll go ahead and just pose at the end. Hopefully this will work this time. Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, way more better than the forms of how it does it in the regular figure skating, that's for sure. Yeah, no, Blue, because even then, for some reason I just always had a hard time trying to able to pose at the end during the forms of the regular figure skating events. So, that's Mario's Figure Skating Spectacular, and now let's move on and showcase off Sonic's. So here we go, on to Sonic's Figure Skating Spectacular, where the difference is now is the fact that obviously it takes place in the exact same location as before, except now this is all heavily influenced with Sonic colors, because you can see on the actual environment, as you can see right there, despite, as you can see right there, we're actually going to be playing this on single match mode. So even then, most of these players has been replaced, like Bowser Jr. and Dr. Eggman. Although we're still going to be playing as Bowser for the majority of this this particular event, while Metal Sonic was still involved. But ultimately, though, we managed to able to actually just to play us on single match. So yeah, because just like the forms of how it does it on Festival mode in the original Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, is that obviously you only have to select one of those versions of that specific Dream Figure Skating and stuff. So something to keep that in mind though, and that could be also the same applies in Legend Showdown in Sochi 2014. So most of these locations are, you know, heavily borrowed from the likes of Sonic Colors basically. So it starts off with Planet Wisp, as you can see right there, where what's cool about this is the fact that, well, Yakko did manage to show up during the forms of the actual crowds, which I think is actually pretty interesting to say the least. However, the only thing I don't like about this, unlike the forms of how it does it on the Mario's counterpart, is that, well, I feel like the ending portion could be a little bit better, or epic enough as it is, but still, it might be pretty nice regardless though, but we'll point that out whenever we get to it. So yeah, that's the Planet Wisp section, and now let's move on to Starlight Carnival, which I think that's what I represented with. So yeah, because it's almost like a Rainbow Road kind of like vibe to it. So even then though, it's pretty cool that allows the Mario characters to finally manage to able to get around with Sonic Colors environments that it's usually based on, like, you know, Planet Wisp and stuff like that, and especially notable is Starlight Carnival, and eventually at this point in the third and final phase, that we'll point it out whenever we get to that specific segment worth noting for. And also, this is actually the first time that Yakko has managed to meet up with the Mario characters, like Mario, Luigi, Peach, and etc. So it's pretty cool though, because even then though, that way, it gives us an opportunity about the fact that, well, despite the fact that Yakko hasn't got any dialogue to say through, unless if you know any forms of Sonic Colors story about the fact that Tails managed to utilize with the actual let's just say a translation with Yakker's language to any forms of what the actual lines what he's saying. So yeah, I guess that makes it obvious for this point here. But yes, it's pretty cool though, and especially noticeable how the fact that, wow, it's quite nice to be able to actually explore those Sonic Colors stages again, but this time in the forms of figure skating attributes and stuff. And from here though, we get ourselves the forms of the boss fight at the end. Well, usually as part of the forms of the figure skating's department. So as you can see, we have the rotation itself, which, to be honest with you, I found was kind of alright for that decision, but that's probably my only gripe about this specific version over the likes of how it does in Vancouver 2010, because back in Vancouver 2010, it starts off with Green Hill Zone, of course, and then afterwards it was Death Egg Zone from Sonic 2, and then after that, well, it takes place in deserted Station Square, and then you have to fight probably the epic fight in the whole game, which is specifically Perfect Chaos, because you can able to utilize with the Chaos Emeralds and all that stuff. Well, for this, it's okay. I mean, nothing amazing though, apart from the fact that we got ourselves the glorious finale portion from the likes of Sonic Colors. We have, well, the Final Color Blaster, which even then though is pretty cool though, but even then though we didn't even do that in the normal Sonic Colors game, but I think it was there for the sake of the forms of performance, I suppose. We could have wished if we can able to utilize that in the final portion in Sonic Colors' final boss, like, you know, with Nigga, Eggman, Wisp, or something like that. It's been such a long while since we actually played Sonic Colors on the Wii, so even then, I will admit though right away, it's been a while, so. And then the last portion right there is just basically, it's just all of these white wisps gathered around, and then they can actually celebrate it with that specific stuff. And as you can see on the top portion of the screen right there is the fact that it's no longer team-based, because instead, as we mentioned about this before, it's all individual match. So even then though, whoever gets the most points compared to the others is the winner. So basically that's how it goes. Because unlike the team version, which, speaking of the team version actually, is the fact that the only way you can able to play the team mode version of this specific event is that you have to access to multiplayer on this specific mode. Because if you play a single player during the likes of a single match, and this time around I actually failed that pose right there, so that's kind of stinks for my part. But either way though, if you play a single player on the forms of single match mode, then you have to force to deal with the individual match. But I digress. So anyway, so now let's move on to the next match in the forms of, or the next event rather, on the forms of Legend Showdown in Area 5. So even then though, after all, we did manage to showcase off, or I think we basically showed off everything. So even then though, that's pretty swell, I should say. So anyways, let's see what's up next. I'm pretty sure, Joel, it was of course large hill ski jumping. So even then though, we can expect to see how this will turn out. And obviously for this event, we'll go ahead and select Comment J64's favorite character of all time when it comes to the Sonic universe is of course Dr. Eggman here. So even then though, to be expected by most other fanboys out there. So here we go, on to the forms of ski jumping, Launch Hill, which even then though, it plays almost exactly like how it did in the forms of Vancouver 2010 version, except, well, there's going to be a massive difference until whenever we jump right in. So even then, we'll get this event started by simply able to show up the actual close-up for Eggman's positioning for that camera. And, you know, we've already got about 2 jump attempts in order to actually just deal with that event. So, and basically, for starters on the forms of this event right there, I recommend you wait until when the wind starts to get stronger, because if it does, well, basically you get yourselves a good chance to, you might as well able to get yourselves a good jump up ahead. So here's the difference here, is the fact that despite there is no special move button or anything like that, instead, that if you manage to launch yourself in midair while you simply jump, basically, you know these little yellow, some sort of like a wind strips around here? What that is the fact that this allows you to able to blow you forward. So even then though, unfortunately we haven't gone that far off from it though, sadly, because, well, as far as I'm aware, it's just that the actual, the distance was a little bit low, so I think we should probably start over it, so. Yeah, this is what I mean when it comes to control schemes can be pretty screw over sometimes, but it's just a little bit of a convenience that is, especially noticeable how the fact that most people seem to complain about this for the most part, so... Because then again, you need to require the Wii Remote Plus in order to actually get the full experience of this game. You can also just hold down the B button to able to charge up your build-up jump momentum, but honestly, I just found the actual timing on there was a little bit iffy for the most part, and I do apologize with the actual capture card as being glitched up again. And speaking of messed things up, well, unfortunately we've messed up for that specific wind distance over there, because if you tilt way forward a little bit too much, basically you start to lose balance and you're probably not going to continue further, so yeah, I guess that was a miserable failure again, so I guess we'll have to do it as a third time's a charm. However though, I will admit though right away is the fact that this particular version of ski jumping was actually a lot harder than the forms of how it does it on Vancouver 2010 in my opinion, because back in Vancouver 2010, at least if you launch yourself in the actual mid-air for that jump, at least you can able to actually utilize the special move when you're in mid-air, and then you can able to get yourselves a large mid-air boost and stuff like that, so that way you can get a lot more distance from here. But in here, you have to utilize the actual wind currents until you're able to actually just to guarantee to go a little bit further when it comes to that. And also, as you can see on the actual bottom part of the actual screen right there, that the more you build up with your yellow bar, as you can see right there, this means about the fact that if your yellow bar is being fully up, well, basically, it gives you the opportunities to get either a perfect boost or a great boost, I should say. So, I think that's a lot better, especially noticeable when I say third time's a charm, if you will. So, even though that's a very good first attempt around here. Of course, we're not going to mess up with the second attempt though, because even though, despite the fact that if we mess up on that specific jump, well, we're going to have to redo that specific event again, so... Anyway, so let's go ahead and wait for a bit. Yeah, good thing for you, Joel, because you always know what you're doing. Yeah, and in fact, the wind itself has actually got a little stronger at this point, so... Yeah, I think that when it comes together, it just all handles out pretty nicely. So speaking of which, actually, is the fact that, I suppose we should probably mention about this right about now, or maybe later, but I'm really too sorry about the actual lack of news or updates at this point, guys, because I know that we have not seen a new Nintendo Direct ever since during the forms of September this year. So I'm really hoping there's going to be one in during the forms of the beginning of 2020, if there's any possibilities, I will. But that again, we'll have to wait and see what happens there until that 2020 arises. So, anyways though, so we did that a little bit more flawless than it ever will be from the likes of the second jump. So even then though, yeah, we actually did that pretty swell. And let's not upload that on the network's rankings, because even though we've already played it in our own time, and I think we've already managed to come across into ourselves the new world record kind of syndrome, so even then, no, that's to be expected. And there goes the doppelgangers themselves. In fact, this is actually the final time we're going to be seeing the actual shadow doppelgangers of the characters themselves, because after this, well, we have to come across into the next rival, which, God knows who else would it be. And speaking of which, is the forms of E123 Omega. So, yeah, the third time that he's become a rival character, basically, until in Rio 2016, that he'll become a playable character, specifically on the 3DS version, because I have no idea why they just can't be bothered able to actually make him as a playable debut in the Wii U version of Rio 2016, and the majority of Tokyo 2020. But, oh well, no big deal. And here we go, on to the next dream event around here, which appears to be Roller Coaster Bobsleigh, which is basically Dream Bobsleigh, basically. And this obviously takes place in Speed Highway, ever since in Sonic Adventure, or to be more accurate, Sonic Generations counterpart. Because you know with these little neon light signs that's been shown up all over the actual Speed Highway, that's actually heavily influenced that from the likes of Sonic Generations in the Dreamcast era, so... Plus with the actual settings and all that stuff, which is pretty cool though. But even then though, unlike in Vancouver 2010, it does manage to able to take place in a special stage from Sonic Heroes, which I think is actually really cool. But then again though, I just think that, well, this particular event is not too hard or not too difficult, or it's actually kind of fun. However though, well, we'll point that out whenever we get to it. And also similar to the likes of Grove Pipe, you know, snowboarding from the likes of Mushroom Bridge, the Dream event. Unfortunately, those rings don't do anything at all, apart from the fact that it will give you a little bit of boost at some point. What in the world, that Omega just managed to catch up at what have you? Jeez. Because after all, we did manage to able to become flawless at the forms of, you know, with Legend Showdown so far. Well, apart from the few occasional errors, such as like, you know, with ski jumping most of the time because of, you know, sometimes controls sometimes really mess you up at points. But hopefully we can able to become flawless at it when it comes to the forms of, you know, roller coaster bobsledge or anything like that. So hopefully that'll be the case. But hopefully we'll need to catch up to Omega somehow because, you know, that again is actually way far ahead compared to us though at the moment. Yeah, assuming if you're trying to able to actually just utilize with the dash panels and all that stuff. Unless if you're trying to dodge the actual, these little wrecking balls, as you can see right there. Because even then, if you somehow get hit by them, basically you lose rings. So, just want to classify that. So, and it's also a little bit different compared to the forms of how it does it in Vancouver 2010 version. Because back in Vancouver 2010 version of that specific Dream Bobsled event is that normally you have like 4 people all in one for that particular bobsledge. This time around, it's only 1 person in a bobsledge, which even then, though, it feels kind of like similar to the likes of how it does it on most Dream events, for sure. But it's just a matter of the fact that, well, you know, it is the last cool part, because basically we are once again scaling down for that specific building, which I think is actually pretty cool. So even then, though, because it makes a whole lot of reference to the forms of Sonic Adventure for sure. No! Dang it! Oh, I can't believe we lost by that. We need to double check on the results here. And this is the first failure on the forms of the entire Let's Play of, you know, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic, Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games. I need to know how much seconds we lost by. 200 milliseconds. 200 milliseconds we lost by Omega. Oh, jeez. That was a massive screwage right there. I guess we should probably try that again at some point, so even then though, hopefully we'll do this again. Even though that, don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed that event though, it's just that, I just can't believe that Omega got that very lucky boost right there at the end. Or I'm pretty sure it's probably because of our gamepad doesn't seem to able to allow to let us to accelerate at one point. Oh well, we'll try that again, and hopefully we can able to succeed for this point, because I'm sure enough though, that, I think this will be the only time, same applies with, you know, ski jumping, that, we did manage to fail between those 2 events, sadly, because I did try to able to actually just do a flawless run, but unfortunately, draw things doesn't seem to make it happen, sadly, because, well, we were expected to able to do this in a nice flawless run, but sadly to say, it doesn't make it happen, sadly. Yeah, I know, Blue, because it's a shame, because even then, though, that we did this so well during the forms of the beginning, to the middle, and then almost to the forms of the ending portion, so... But it wasn't until, you know, Area 5 that I always seem to have trouble with for some reason, because sometimes some of these control schemes, especially noticeable with the Wii Remote Plus, and especially noticeable with the gamepad sometimes, just almost comes off as like unintuitive at the same time, but that's probably just me anyway, so... But anyways, enough about that, so let's go ahead and, you know, just concentrate on the race, so hopefully we can get some more speed boost kind of thing about it, so I guess that makes it totally obvious for that point. So, but even then, there's not much else we could really talk about this, I'm afraid, guys, because even then, I'm quite surprised that we've almost nearly towards the end of the entire Let's Play of this, because afterwards, then we probably should take a break on the forms of redo Let's Plays from now on, because even then, though, if you guys can clearly tell at this point, this is the final a redo Let's Play for our channel for the forms of 2019, because even then until 2020 there will be still more along the way, especially noticeable. We'll talk more on that until whenever we get to the specific Christmas video during that some form or another, but still we have to find out and turn at some point. So anyways, let's go and get some dash panels, and please, for the love of God, don't screw us over this time. Thank you. That was a little bit of embarrassing moments worth noting for. Especially, well, to make matters even much more iffy than this is that, well, unfortunately we don't get ourselves our new record this time around, because for whatever reason, if we lose, we somehow manage to get ourselves a new record somehow. I mean, usually for Omega, that he does it so much worse than he forms of how he does it on the first attempt somehow, but I'm guessing it's probably because, even though this is still on normal mode, so I'm guessing that makes it a little bit obvious for that solution here. So there we go, folks. Area 5 is now completed. So we did have a rough time on that specific area, I will admit though right away, but regardless of everything else though, it's a pretty decent run. Yeah, I was gonna admit it though right away, Blue. I'm just gonna have to admit it for this point. So once again, I think we might actually get ourselves an A+ effort. So except with Ski Cross, that we basically got 1,000 points for each event, so that's fantastic to say the least. So I guess we'll end things off here. So join us tomorrow for more of Let's Play of Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games. Is that we're about to begin the final area in the game, which is Area 6. So see you guys tomorrow. Later, fellas. See you then.